Welcome to Business Banking Workshop by Valerie Rivas. Um, I'm your host, Irene Cho. This webinar covered learn how the right banking structure helps you manage income, expenses, and payments smoothly. This webinar is brought to you in partnership with EWDD. uh, BusinessSource Pico-Union Westlake region operated by PACE Business Development Center. This webinar will be recorded and you may find it on our website, e-library, after a week or two. Just a little housekeeping before we get started. Please mute yourself during the webinar. Um, If you have question using chat box or raising hand emoji, uh, and then, Valerie will answer time to time as she presents. Before we get to the topic of the day, I'd like to introduce PACE briefly. PACE was originally formed in 1976. Our PACE Business Development Center provides many counseling business services for local small business owners. We also provide free webinars and training to accommodate your business to take to another level. We have various loan programs also you can apply to your business. So if you have any question, please feel free to visit our website, pacebdc.org, or give us a call. We have upcoming webinar regularly. You can always check our website and register. Past webinar recordings, please visit our e-library. Please give some time for our marketing team to upload the recording. It might take about a week or two. Okay, now let's get started on today's webinar. Please welcome Valerie.
Thank you, Irene, and thank you, Pace, as usual, for your continued partnership. You've been with me throughout my journey, so I always appreciate your partnership. And thank you, everybody, for making it today. On the chat, whenever you get a chance, if you can please go ahead and tell me what kind of business you're in and what brings you into class. And let's see where everybody's visiting from on the chat. I just want to get an idea if there's a certain topic that I'm touching on that I can concentrate a little bit more and make sure that I'm answering any questions. Feel free to use the chat, and then also the question option also that's available through your chat portal. Well, today we are going to be talking about business banking workshop, and I'll tell you a little bit who I am today and as to why I'm speaking about this today. So it's money in motion, banking solutions that work for your business. So I know that everybody has probably stepped foot in the bank, but maybe you're not familiar as far as what they have available at the bank for you and how to maybe leverage the different solutions that are available for you. So that's what today's class is about. Now, you might be thinking, okay, who's my speaker? Who's speaking to me today? I actually came from the finance world. So I was in finance for over 20 years. The last 15 years of my career, I was in business banking. So I was helping entrepreneurs and business owners like yourself find solutions and help them access capital, but then also advising them throughout their way and their growth for anywhere from a startup to middle market clients. Now, as I mentioned, was at the bank, and the last 4 years of my life at the corporate world, I actually was in community. So I was in business community. That's actually how I met Irene. And we would do financial literacy, keynote speaking, panel discussions, women empowerment, and just be involved in the community to make sure that we're catering to our community to get them to the next level and be able to scale them up. I do sit on a couple nonprofit boards. One of them is Swing Into Success, and they are a women's golf club. So we empower women to golf. I just went to a golf tournament on Monday, and out of 144 players, they only had two women golfers. So if you're a woman in this call, I totally encourage you to join a golf group to be able to get comfortable and be able to golf. because it was a little saddened when there was only two women that were there that were golfing. And then another one that I sit on is National Association of Women Business Owners. And so I'm the incoming president-elect. That means that once the presidency is done, then I would be the next president coming in. So really excited about that new board membership that I have. So thank you everybody again for joining. Now, I want to get started today on what we're going to be covering. So, we're going to be talking about the cash flow challenge. I know that last week, for those of you that attended, we talked about cash flow and how could it actually affect your business. So, it's not necessarily profit. So, we're going to touch on that just a little bit and give you some stats that are related to today's workshop. Core banking products decoded. So, we're going to go through checking, savings, credit lines, and merchant services and what they could do for your business. Digital tools that save you time, so such as mobile banking, ACH, and payment automation. If you don't know what these are, we're going to go through them today. Protecting your business through fraud, insurance, and compliant basics. And finding the right banking partner, really, really important that you have a banker on your side that's going to guide you through the way, but we're also going to talk about some red flags to avoid. And then at the end, we're going to close out with Q&A session. So you're going to have the opportunity to ask live questions. If they're a little bit more tailored to you, then we can definitely schedule a follow-up appointment with either Irene or myself, and we can go ahead and tackle on your questions that you may have personally and for your business. So let's talk a little bit about cash flow, for especially for those of you that were not present last week when we talked about cash flow. 82% of businesses failed, and this is linked to cash flow problems, which is really, really important that if you don't understand your cash flow and how it could affect your business, it's very important that you understand how much time it takes you for you to make that money back and have it back in your bank account. So 82% of businesses fail. So if you're not familiar with your cash flow cycle, you need some help, definitely leverage your resources to be able to understand what that looks like. 60% of small businesses run short on cash monthly. That's huge. That's more than 50%. That's more than half of the business owners. And then 50,000 will average between payables and receivables. So that means in between you making the sale to you being able to wait for your pay, clients will wait for $50,000. And so what do you do at that point? You have to have certain solutions in place so that they can get you through that hump to be able to get you to be able to offer, pay your payroll, do your operating expenses, and be able to continue your business. All right, awesome. So I'm taking a look here and I just want to pause really quick. So it looks like we have ViewSonic from Brea and technology manufacturer. So yes, cash flow definitely an important subject for you. And we have some solutions today that can also help you. Consulting firm. So we have Shaz Vacays and Liberty Zion from San Francisco. Nice. I love it. But you're currently traveling in Tennessee. Nice. I'm leaving in Nicaragua tonight, so I'm really excited about that. And then we have Ray from LA, manufacturing silicone extrusion, moldings, medical, and high-end precision. So yes, cash flow definitely is something that's really important. But today, again, we're going to go through some solutions that can also help your business. And if you have any additional questions, Irene and myself are here to help. Now, here at the bottom, it has a quick note that the right banking setup isn't holding money. It's about keeping your business alive, idle, and growing. Today, we explore the tools and give you control. So that's what we're going to navigate through today. What solutions are at the bank? And maybe sometimes the bank doesn't have those solutions. So that doesn't mean that you can't get those solutions. It just means you have to outsource it somewhere else. Now, what are the main core banking products? So you have your business checking account. So for most of you, especially for those that are already operating in the manufacturing and the consulting world, you probably are familiar with a business checking account. So there's a difference between a personal and a checking account. Personal, you should essentially just be running only your personal items through there, whereas your business checking account helps you be able to have all your operating expenses, any type of transactions you might have there, any payroll, vendor payments, pretty much everything that has to do with your business would go through a business checking account. Now, the nice thing about business checking account and check with your bank, for the most part, you get unlimited transactions. You're typically able to separate multiple business checking accounts to be able to safeguard your account and maybe have one checking account that's going to be to pay your payroll and maybe others to just do unlimited transactions where it's not involving your payroll. One of the things that I always recommended when I was a banker at multiple banks that I worked at was in order to be able to safeguard your accounts, if you did like a lot of type of wires or you wrote a lot of checks, that you kept minimal amount of money in that account. And the reason for that is when you're giving out checks or you're giving out your account number and routing number, your account becomes vulnerable because now you have your account number and routing number out in the world, right? So that's why it's better to use your debit card, credit card more than anything, actually. But this is what best business checking accounts would be used for. It is okay to have multiple accounts as long as it makes sense. So there is times where my business clients would open an account specifically to keep track of what their taxes and quarterly taxes had to be due. One of them, obviously, for savings, and another one would be for their operating expenses. And for those that did any type of manufacturing or had to deal with like offshore accounts and things like that, they would have an account for just specifically wires. And then, of course, the main checking account that would have pretty much all the different transactions. If you're just starting off, that's not necessary. However, I do want to put it out there as you grow, you may want to consult with your business banker as to what the right format would, the right setup for you would be. There's also high yield savings. These are typically used for your savings, any type of maybe taxes. We do recommend that you do anywhere from 3 to 6 months of emergency reserves, and then any type of separate profit buckets that you may want to have like your overflow on. Now, take a look at your bank and see what kind of high yield savings accounts they have. Typically, they give you certain type of promotions or they give you some sort of incentive to be able to open these high yield savings accounts. And there's some of them that can go like 4% is lately kind of what I've seen, maybe even more depending on what bank you go through. And typically with your what we found is that your banks typically, if they are a large financial institution, they typically do not pay as much as they would maybe a smaller bank that may need more of the deposits. And I keep saying typically because it's my banker hat of it could all, they may or may not have different promotions depending on what bank you go to. Also, if you go to bankrate.com, you can also shop around there without actually going to each financial institution or actually give them a call. And that's usually where if I'm looking to deposit a large amount of cash and where I want to get a little bit more money return on my investment, then I'll look on there to see what company I should open a high yield savings account for. I know that we have manufacturers here and people in the service business, so I do see a consulting firm online. Now, business credit lines are typically for service companies or even those that have like distribution, manufacturing, maybe a marketing firm. It could also be where you're managing your inventory, so you may need a business credit line. Now, business credit line, you will never ever use this for a fixed asset. What does this mean? If you're buying a commercial property, if you're buying an equipment, if you are using it to maybe hire 4 or 5 new salespeople or staff, you would not be using a business credit line. The reason that this is here is because it's one of the most favorable and the most not the I don't want to say the most favorable, but the most popular, I would say, type of product that's out there, but it's very, very important that you only use it for very short-term financing. What does this mean? You want to use it when you're managing your receivables. So if you are that client that has $50,000 or more in your receivables, or even a little less, you can use a business line of credit to be able to manage your receivables, to be able to manage your operations, be able to continue your payroll while you make that money back. And if you understand your cash flow cycle, you will know whether or not you would need to use this. Would you repeat the site that you mentioned for comparing rates of yield accounts, high yield accounts? Yes. So it's bankrate.com, which I believe also at the end of the presentation, it'll also give you the it'll also give you the site. I believe I had them add on it. Great question. Thank you. Now, lines of credit again, do not use it for any fixed asset, any equipment, anything like that. Make sure you're sitting down with your banker, have good communication with your banker so that we're able to guide you as to what type of product you should be using for the type of need that you have or collateral. Thank you, Dyra. Merchant services, this is also that can help you manage your receivables, especially for those clients that only accept cash or check, which hopefully not everybody is disservicing not only yourself, but your client and your business. Merchant services is a way to get payments pretty quickly. Most of merchant service companies are maybe even doing same day funding, meaning that they'll you swipe the card and then that night you'll have the money in your account, or next day funding, meaning you'll have the money in your account the next day. And something great that I just found out when I just changed my merchant provider is that I'm able to bill that to the client. So I had found myself as an entrepreneur saying, okay, you know what, let's try to work something out so that I can help you. But obviously the merchant services, the rates they get into your bottom line. So now you can actually bill that to the client. So if the client wants to pay for it, then they can go ahead and pay for the convenience fee of paying with a credit card. Because a lot of these clients, they want to use it because either one, they're getting their points, two, maybe they don't have the money in their account, or three, they're trying to delay their payables, which we can talk about that shortly on how you can leverage that for yourself and your business to be able to delay your payables. And we'll talk about the importance and how that helps you with your cash flow. Now here at the bottom, we added a tip and it says use separate accounts for operating, payroll, and reserves. Clarity saves times at tax season. And that's absolutely correct. So I myself, I have an account for taxes and I have one for my operating expenses. I don't need too much because I do understand what the type of business that I have, but I do have it because I don't want to fall behind in my taxes or commingle it with my general expenses. Excuse me, I needed some water. So digital tools that save time. So let's start with the right side first. And here on the left are some solutions to be able to help you with this. So time savings calculator here on the right, we're estimating check writing, depending on, of course, how many things you have going on for the business, but that could be 4 hours a week. Chasing late invoices, that could be 2 hours a week. Manual reconciliation, that could be 3 hours a week. And payment errors and fixes, that could be 1 or even sometimes even more time a week. So the bank does offer solutions for you to have convenience so that you can focus more on the things that you need to focus on, which is your business and what you're actually good at, right? So first is a mobile banking application. So on here, you're able to deposit checks, transfer funds, approve payments from anywhere. And to be quite honest, you don't know how many times it's been like, oh my goodness, like I need to transfer or I need to make this payment because I have, I don't know, some big type of expense coming up and I want to free up some space on my credit card, right? Because we want to continue using our business credit card. So mobile banking can actually help you with that. Or even there's been a time in where I was purchasing a vehicle and I'm like, okay, I need to transfer some from my Merrill Lynch account. So I was able to log in, be able to transfer it to the appropriate account, and boom, here's my deposit for the vehicle that I'm purchasing. So those are some of the convenience things. Also, it's very, very rare that I have to step foot into a banking center or financial center. I recently just went to one after, I don't even know how long it's been since I actually had a deposit, but I didn't have my debit card. So I was forced to go inside the bank. And then for some reason, my phone was not working, so I was forced to go into the bank. But for the most part, mobile banking app is for me life because I don't have to really step foot. The transfers, all of that, you don't have to waste time in calling. So if you are able to learn these to how to use your mobile application for your bank, that's going to be very crucial for your business. ACH transfers. So this could be low cost direct payments, payroll, vendor invoices, and recurring bills. I actually use an ACH, a company where they can do ACH. And on this ACH, they actually transfer the money directly into your account. And unlike wires, it actually usually doesn't cost you any money for you to be able to get ACH transfers. Payment automation. So this is actually favorite things that my old merchant service didn't have, and this one does. So I do have those clients that have to pay on a monthly basis, have to pay me the same amount every single month. And so you're able to you schedule invoices automatically and it sends them reminders of, hey, you have to pay this amount, $1,500 each 15th of the month. So you're able to do payment automation and where these, instead of having like, oh my goodness, I have to go manually do this invoice or I have to go mail it, you are able to automate this and where you auto pay vendors or they auto pay you as far as your clients and also eliminate late fees. Also, I want to tell you that I just changed and then I just changed and today one of the invoices went out because the first is coming out. And I was just so happy that I didn't actually have to do that manually. I don't know why I didn't have spend a little bit more time in finding out what merchant provider can actually do that for me because the old one that I was using wasn't doing that for me. So that's one less thing that I have to worry about. Accounting integration, so connecting your bank feeds to QuickBooks, Xero, FreshBooks in real time. So most of your banks, or even if you have QuickBooks, should have this ability to get the information from your business account going into QuickBooks. So I know that back in the day, even when we had this service and they wouldn't communicate with their banker, they were spending a lot of time manually inputting this in or having somebody paying somebody to be able to pay to put in all of the information into QuickBooks, which could be very, very time consuming. And I know this because my dad, when I was 16 years old, after school, he'd be like, okay, you got to do QuickBooks. That technology was not a thing just yet. I remember hating it. He would pay me, right, but I would hate doing it. So there's definitely something called usually they call it like account management or usually you'll see like a QuickBooks sign on there and where they're able to integrate into your QuickBooks so that you don't have to manually input this information in. Save you some time. Now let's talk about protecting your business because I have seen this in the past, unfortunately, especially back in 2008 where FDIC insurance maybe only covered a certain amount or and yes, so FDIC covers up to $250,000. Back in the day, back in like 2007, 2004, I remember that time the maximum that they would cover was 100,000. I actually worked for IndyMac Bank back in the day doing wholesale lending for mortgages. And at that time, yeah, the coverage was only 100,000 and there was unfortunately a lot of people that lost a lot of money that they had, like their whole life savings, and they were only able to recuperate 100,000. So very important that you sit down with your banker to strategize on what the best way, titles that you put onto your bank accounts so that you are protected past the $250 limit, $250,000 limit. My apologies for that. Now, fraud prevention. So enable transaction alerts. So your bank should be able to have some sort of alerts that you're able to turn on. Yes, you do have to go turn them on because not everybody wants alerts. And so because of that, you have to consent to be able to receive those alerts. Set daily transfer limits. So let's just say that you may have some employees or somebody gets a hold of your account. You want to get notified after, let's just say $100, $500, depending on what number you feel comfortable with. You can set transfer limits as to being alerted and then also use dedicated payroll accounts. So what does this mean? That when you put that money into the payroll account, you don't commingle it with your operating expenses. So that way you make sure that your employees are always paid. You don't know how many times at the bank I seen where somebody comes and says, Valerie, this is a payroll check. They didn't let me cash it or they didn't let me deposit it because it has non-sufficient funds. This is a business check. Yes, and businesses could still have issues having money in the account. We just talked about 82% of business owners struggle with cash flow. So what does this mean? That there is a possibility that that payroll check might not go through. So because of that, you want to make sure that you keep your employees happy, make sure that you're retaining your employees. You don't know how many times I've seen at the bank and where, people would start crying, like, what do you mean I can't cash this check? It's a business check. I should be able, I worked all week. Why can't I cash my check? So those are some things that you may want to set in place to protect yourself and your employees and your reputation as well. Positive pay for check fraud. So this is for more if you're doing a lot of checks that you're paying out, right? So, and this is a more, maybe even for like manufacturers, distributors, like you have a lot of vendors, a lot of employees, there is something called positive pay. So what does this mean? That it's very, very difficult for people to replicate your check. So you do an agreement with the bank and where they approve the checks that are coming through. So when they come in, it pops up and it tells us exactly what that amount should be. So if anybody tries to change, let's just say from $1,000 to $100,000, and maybe your account does have that kind of money, and if you don't have positive pay and it looks real and the teller, there is a possibility that that check can go through. So if you do have a lot of checks that you're putting out on a monthly basis, positive pay might be a solution that you may want to consider. We talked about FDIC insurance and we talked about how it's $250,000 per depositor per bank. So best bet is to sit down with your banker to get more information to see how you can protect if you do carry the balances beyond 250,000. Consider spreading large deposits, money market accounts that qualify. So again, sit with your business banker to see how you can protect yourself. And when it comes to credit union, they still have a coverage, but it's called NCUA coverage. So it's a little bit different. So make sure that you check with your credit union and you see how much money is being covered. If you have investments, they are also covered by SIPC, I want to say. And you may also want to sit down with your investment banker to see how much money is being covered and in what way and what shape or form it's being covered as well. Business credit. So this is actually a way that you can actually protect your business. The way that I would always recommend my clients is use your business credit card for everything. Every time that you use a debit card, it's linked directly to your checking account. Every time that you use a credit card, it's whose money? It's the bank's money. It's not necessarily your money. Yes, you're paying it back, but the line of credit belongs really to the bank. So what does that mean? It makes your business account less vulnerable to be acceptable to fraud. So try to always use a business credit card, especially if you're doing any type of online shopping. It's better for them to get the line of credit versus get your checking account. And that has happened in where my client maybe has over $1 million in there, and then all of a sudden they get a hold of that account, and so they start draining the account. And some of these clients, because of the amount of money they have on there, like, oh, I have plenty of cash. They don't check on it as often as maybe they should until it's already too late, and then maybe you can't file that claim. So if you're able to use a business credit card, you're able to, at the end of the month, when you get that statement or as you go, take a look and see what type of transactions have been going on and be able to dispute them appropriately. Keep business and personal separate. So anything that you do for your business, you want to keep on a business credit card, not a personal card, especially when it comes to auditing from the IRS or anything like that. You want to make sure that you have it on your business credit card. Build credit history early. So being able to get a business credit card early on can help you with that. And a lot of these banks, they already port to Dun& Bradstreet, which we're going to talk in just a moment, and which helps you build your business credit. So if you don't have any type of business credit, which I believe we're doing that next week, we are going to be talking about building business credit. We can dive a little bit deeper on how to do that. Monitor business credit reports, just as you would on your personal, and then aim for 80 plus Dun & Bradstreet score, which we're going to talk about in just a moment. Finding the right banking partner. This is actually very, very important to have a really good relationship with your business banker. Not only are business bankers really well aware of what's going on in the market, but then also when the right moves, depending on your business and industry, could also be. So what are some of the things that you may want to look out for? Let's go through those really quickly. On the right, it says red flags to avoid. So no dedicated business support, only consumer service. So I don't know if any of you have been into a branch and they say, "Oh, you know what? We don't have a business banker or we don't have anybody that handles businesses." Those are some of the things that you are going to need as a business owner. And if you don't have them at the branches, at least have it over the phone where you can call customer service and get the guidance and support that you need. Hidden fees buried in the fine print. So I recently actually just opened another business account, and although they knew that I used to work at that financial institution, the banker still sat down with me and he went through it. He's like, I know you used to work here. He's like, but just in case, this is how to avoid the fee. And he highlighted every single thing that I needed to be aware of, and nothing really has changed. But at the same time, I appreciated that he took the time to make sure that I understood how to avoid the fee, and if I am going to get a fee, what are those fees for? No integration with modern accounting software. So this is going to be life-changing if you don't use it already, where they don't integrate with QuickBooks and where it transfers the information automatically so that you don't have to manually input it in. Slow ACH process. What does this mean? That they're taking with your merchant services. Like I mentioned today, there's merchant services provider that one could give you the funds that same night or the next day. If they're holding more than 3 business days for ACH or for merchant services, you may want to consider one, changing your bank, or two, changing your provider that you use for that. No mobile check deposit for business accounts, especially for businesses. We don't really have time to go, especially now, standing in line and being able to deposit your checks. We need to get that and deposit it right away so that your cash flow keeps going. So that would be another red flag. And then required to use a specific payroll company. So if they're telling you you must use X, Y, and Z company, if you're using payroll, those are all red flags, and typically that is not true. You got to remember that bankers also may be on a sales position. Some banks are not in sales position, so you just want to make sure that you're making the right decisions for your business, but then also make sure that you're getting the appropriate guidance for your business. So questions to ask any bank. What are your monthly maintenance fees and how do I waive them? As I mentioned earlier, my banker was very, very thorough. And although I pretty much knew all that information in there, it was really nice to get a refresher. What's the minimum balance to avoid the fees? So typically nowadays, a lot of the banks have fees, but they have ways to avoid them, whether that would be using your debit card, a credit card, one of their services that might waive it. So sit down and see what's going to be the most appropriate way to avoid that fee. How fast do you process ACH and wire transfers? Make sure that they're not holding your money. And do you offer dedicated small business advisors? If you don't have a business banker, I can't stress this so much that it's really important for you to get a business banker. Not only do they give you free advice, but as I mentioned, they give you advice as to when you should be making certain moves or even when they have certain promotions. So I remember at one point the feds were going to raise interest rates 5 times that year. So it wasn't something that it was hidden. It was on the news and everything, but you as business owners might not be available to hear that information, but your bankers do because we're up top of the market. So what would I do? Hey, right now, I know you mentioned you wanted to buy that equipment, but it's a pretty large equipment. You're spending $500,000 on this equipment. Why don't we do it now? Because it's going to save you $4,000, let's just say, on the life of the loan or whatever it may be, or even your payment. How does your online and mobile platform rate with other users? So you may want to know there's some banks that are spend a little bit more or invest a little bit more in their technology to make sure that they're streamlining their mobile applications and the technology that they have. So you may want to ask those questions as well. And if the technology isn't there, maybe that's not going to be the bank that you want to have as primary, but maybe have it as secondary, or maybe they have a really good high yield type of account, so you may want to just have them for that service. So, your banking action plan. So here are some of the things that we talked about. And Irene, I need to send you these so that you could either post it or maybe I can email it to everybody. But yeah, so one of the first things that you would need to do today, your call to action is going to be separating your accounts. So make sure that you have a dedicated account just for your business. If you do have payroll and employees and are operating a little bit at a higher capacity, then you may also want to consider opening accounts for different things, such as maybe an operating account, payroll account, one for reserves. If you're doing wires, you may want to do that as well. But also check with your accountant and your business banker based on your situation. They may create a solution that'll be the right fit for you. Automate payments. So as I mentioned, if your merchant service provider or you have to do things manually right now, there are solutions out there and where you don't actually have to do it all yourself and manually do it or pay somebody to do it. So you are able to set up automatic payments and automatic withdrawals out of other credit cards so that you can get paid. I know that we have some service business here. Like for example, I know that we have a consultant. So you may want to consider something like that if you don't have something like that in place. So that way your cash flow keeps coming in as needed. Turn on fraud alerts. So call your bank this week or not even call your bank. Go check in your mobile application or their online portal. They may have a section on there where it says set up alerts, or usually if you do the search bar, you do set up alerts, it should navigate towards that section or at least guide you in the right direction. That way, if you get any type of large deposits, or even if you want to, sorry, large deposits or large withdrawals, like those are some things that maybe you want to know about. Review your fees. So request a fee schedule if you don't know what they are, and find a better bank if needed. So there has been times and where I do a consult with a client and I ask for their profit and loss, and I see $6,000 in bank fees. And so, and let's just say their revenue's, not up there where it needs to be for it to be $6,000, because that could be normal for certain size businesses. For that particular size business that I'm talking about, I remember it being like very extreme. And I was able to refer them to another bank to be able to get the right solutions, right banker, and then was saving now from $6,000. I think it went down, I think to like 500 or something like that because of the services that they were using. Build business credit. So apply for a business credit card if you haven't already. And I will have a building business credit class next week. So looking forward to that class as well. It was one that had to be rescheduled. So if you are able to attend next week, that's actually really crucial, especially for the foundation of your business. So we're going to go through the different type of credit bureaus that are out there for business and how they are, how you're able to start building your business credit, even with your vendors and other suppliers as well. Now I'm going to go ahead and open it up for questions to see if anybody has questions. Also, if you'd like to scan a QR code, or if you have some questions maybe that I didn't answer today, you're able to scan the QR code that's on the screen right now, and you're able to schedule a session with me. And I could also talk a little bit more about what solutions might be out there, or even build a strategy for you as to going to market as far as your business, or how we might be able to help at Evia. Thank you. The banker is our business partner to have smooth cash flow. Yes and no. So your banker is your advisor, but yes, I guess they should be advising you as far as what solutions are out there to be able to smooth out your cash flow gaps. So they should be able to advise, okay, based on your situation, there has been times where I recommended 6 different loans and lines of credit for a client because they were going to be buying a lot of equipment, and they were going to be hiring some employees, and they were also trying to manage their receivables. So I ended up recommending 6 different solutions. But yes, Nadia, you should have a good relationship with your banker because they should be able to advise you on some things that can help you based on your business. So you should be sitting with them at least twice a year. Thank you, Shai. I appreciate that comment. Thank you, Dyra. And on here, I'd love to keep in contact with you. First one is LinkedIn. If you're on there, we also have an Instagram. And then coming up shortly, we are going to be having a podcast that we're going to be interviewing subject matter experts in different fields that can help or protect your business or scale it up. So if you can scan these QR codes and give us a follow or subscribe, that would be amazing. And it looks like there is no questions, or actually there might be. Let me see. Will we have access to slides after training as well? The answer is yes. What's an ideal setup for business with multiple income streams? Shah, I think I would probably either one have to sit down with you over the phone or on Zoom and kind of go over that. Because I would have to figure out a little bit more about what kind of income streams you have. But typically, like for example, today I have a doctor that has a consulting firm, but she also does tutoring on the side. So in her setup, the way that she did it is she has an LLC. She sat down with her accountant, but she has an LLC and she has a DBA for each account. So she has a consulting firm and she has a practice and she does tutoring on the side. So she does a lot. So she loves the kids. Hopefully that helps, but you're more than welcome to schedule an appointment with me and I'll be happy to sit down with you. Do you have any specific banks you personally recommend? Okay, so I'm a little biased because I worked there for over 10 years. So I would say Bank of America is a great bank. That's actually where I have most of my business accounts. So that would be one. Another good one I would say would be Chase. Those would be my two that I would go to. US Bank, what I love about them is they have something called Access Advisors, and they will sit down and do one-on-one coaching with you and guide you through the way of building business credit and just one-on-one mentorship. That's actually another bank that I like. So I would say those three. However, there is some clients that are like, I don't like Bank of America, I don't like Chase, I don't like Wells Fargo. So it just really all depends on preference. But I know as far as technology, Bank of America has invested a lot of money and so has Chase. Do you mind sharing who you use? I use Bank of America and okay, I use Bank of America, Chase, and I use US Bank. Those are the three that I use. If you had to rebuild from scratch, what would you do and what would you avoid? Okay, so first off, I have Dyra on here and she's been an amazing help. And honestly, when I first started, I wish I was a little scared to start my business first of all, because I was being offered to come back to the bank. So that's one thing. And so two, I would say just one, not be afraid. And two, I wish I would have sat down sooner and just knew that I know that first it takes money to make money. I would say just get a startup loan right from the start because it took me like 3 or 4 months for me to actually go get a loan when I was like, I think I'm gonna do this. And so that's when Dyra came into play because I felt like I was spinning my wheels and I had to sat down and put my banker hat on. And I said, what is it that I'm doing? And I was doing a lot of admin work, which Dyra knows I am not good at that whatsoever. So identifying your gaps, getting a loan, and knowing what you're going to be using that money for, and having a strategy. I wish I would have had that 3 months sooner. Great question. Thank you. Anybody else? Thank you, Dyra. So yeah, Dyra actually put her contact information there as well if you'd like to email her or myself. Dyra is very crucial to my business. She helps out a lot on all the different things that I am not able to do. So yes, wanted to give you a shout out too. All right, Irene.
Okay. Thank you for joining us today. See you next week. Thank you. Bye.
Bye, Irene. Take care.
Take
Bye,
care.
everyone.